Boom. There it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, talk about transforming companies through effective talent management. That's what today's episode is all about. So let's get this one rolling. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros.
Hi, Business Bros. Today, we got an inspiring conversation that delves deep into the world of strategic talent management. Our guest is an unparalleled background in transforming companies within the medical device, life science, and pharma sectors with years of experience and trailblazing approach to recruitment. Our guest is an expert for the likes of CEOs and professionals aspiring to excel in high-level regulatory affairs, quality engineering, commercial operations, clinical practices, and marketing. From leveraging talent to unlocking strategic growth, this episode promises invaluable insight. So without further ado, let's introduce our guest who has redefined the art of talent management, Mr. Darwin Shurig.
Guys.
Hi, all right, Darwin, let's do this thing, man. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. That was, I had so much fun already just watching your guys' intro. It's fantastic. I love it, man.
Well, that's what it's all about, man. It's all about figuring out what makes my guests smile so that we can talk about them in the best light possible. So let's do this, man. Darwin, your journey from a clinical background to becoming a talent management expert, that's pretty fascinating stuff already. Can you share how your unique blend of experience has kind of shaped your approach to business?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I never thought in a million years I'd be doing this. So it's always interesting where we end up, right, versus where we come from. But I started out, my clinical background as a respiratory therapist, always, kind of cared about bringing people value and clinically. And then I got into corporate America, about 12 years managing sales teams, business development, marketing, and contract negotiation, and came to a point where I was a part of a company that was acquired. They merged $2.5 billion business units. And then after the end of that, 2 weeks later, they said, thanks a lot to about 250 of us from the previous company, and got an opportunity to kind of, that door shut and some windows sort of open. And so I'd never really thought about being on this side. I certainly dealt with recruiters and talent management processes as a hiring manager and as a candidate. But most of the time, I would say those experiences left me less than impressed, let's say. They tend to be, from my experience, very transactional. A lot of times the recruiters didn't maybe know a lot about the hiring manager or maybe a lot about the company. And so, however, I got an opportunity. A friend of mine that was a part of a franchise organization and still is, he said, hey, you ever thought about owning your own business? And certainly had, and looked at it a few different times. But after exploring it, I just really felt like there were some things that we could bring to the industry that might be different and bring value in a different way and the goal has always been to kind of change the candidate experience to the benefit of the companies and from an outcomes and analytics driven thought process. So it's been an interesting 8 years since that decision.
Let me ask you, because when you have a failure in life, when you get let go from a position or things drastically change, sometimes it's in your control, sometimes it's out of your control. It can really be demoralizing. It can really knock you down a couple pegs. You seem to be the type of person that kind of bounced back from that. But I would imagine, contrary to what we hear from the U.S. government that aliens exist, you seem to be a pretty human individual. How do you bounce back from something like that?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think that experience and having done something previously, right, it helps build constitution, so to speak. So I've lost my job twice in the corporate world. And the first time it was not good. The market was not good. That company doesn't exist anymore. So my claim to fame was I was, on the back end of the leaders that were let go. But that was a pretty challenging, and certainly from a self-esteem standpoint, I was in my 30s and that had never happened to me before. And it really makes you, it reveals some things. And so, however, when this happened, it really didn't faze me because of my previous experiences. And I looked at it as an opportunity to do something different and to grow. And if that hadn't happened, I actually keep a pin from that company because in a sense, I thank them that they didn't keep me, because I probably would not have potentially gotten to go down this road of entrepreneurship, which has been an incredible blessing to me. But I think knowing your personal why, regardless of what you do, is vitally important. Understanding your purpose and where you get value from, and that every situation is either an opportunity to celebrate or to learn as a test. And so that's kind of how I look at it. And I think we learn more from our failures and our challenges than we do our successes. It's certainly easy to be in a good mood and be happy when things go well. So
yeah, that the failure is the lesson, though. And it's funny because I also teach high school, and I have 17-year-old students that are about to graduate. And one of the things that I like to talk to them about is that idea of you don't know something, right? And the cusp of you learning something is that point at which you realize, I don't know what the next step is, or I might be struggling with the next step, but I'm going to move in that direction anyway. And I think your company, you've achieved some remarkable success, mainly because anytime you've faced any type of failure, you kind of pursued and kept going. You persevered and kept going through this thing. Can you tell me about your company's key offering? How did you take that failure, turn it into success, and now what do you bring into the table? What's that strategic value, that medical device, the life science, the pharmaceutical companies? What is the value that you're bringing to the table now to make those things a success?
Absolutely. So I'll go into that. And one thing I just want to throw out to you for your students, my dad was a teacher, and I certainly value education, but stoicism and the study of it, there's a great book, The Obstacle is the Way, that it talks all about the challenges, right? You shaking your head, so certainly aware of that. The Masculine in Relationships, another great book, particularly for young men in terms of understanding their value and how to communicate and control their emotions in different pressure situations. But
that's by Ryan Holiday, I think his name is.
Well, the Stoicism is. So he's got a lot of different books on there. I got one that I'm sitting over here. Discipline is Destiny is another one. But yeah, I believe his books are phenomenal. But yes, The Obstacle is the Way is from him. So in terms of what differentiates us, so I'll tell you. When the first 2 years was just staying alive. I'd never owned a business before, and I'd never been in the recruitment or talent management industry. So from that standpoint, it's kind of like staying at a hotel, right? I've stayed at a lot of hotels, so you're kind of an expert. Not really. And so the first 2 years was just learning the intricacies and blocking and tackling and just really working hard and understanding your value prop and how to protect that and differentiate in the marketplace. And then the next 2 years really kind of getting strong at getting really good at that in terms of, financial growth. We went from 256 to 310 to 380. And then my fourth year, over 600K. And that was mostly just me, 95% of that. And so at that point, I really had to decide, for me at least, did I want to have a lifestyle business and be able to, because, the great thing about what we do, if you can make it, 80% of people that enter to try to do recruiting don't make it a year. And the business failures are not great either. And we'll talk a little bit more about failures across industry-wide companies and the characteristics. But did I want to have a lifestyle? Because, you can run this type of business as long as you have phone and internet from anywhere. Or did I want to scale and try to do something different? And so I chose to scale. Charity and my why is really important to me. So I wanted to have a greater reach. I wanted to benefit people in the way that this has benefited me. And so we went, then for ultimately 1.37 and 2.4 million last year. But at the same time, I learned a lot of lessons because I had never scaled a business and I made a ton of mistakes. And so, but what I'll share with you to answer your original question is the first 4 years, we've always been outcomes driven. So our offer acceptance rate over 8 years is average 94%. And so it's all about bringing value. I didn't want to be a vendor. I wanted to be a partner and figure out ways to bring more value to candidates as well as companies. And so I think got really strong, let's say, at that, but then started to 3.5 years ago add social media. That's when I started the webinar series that we have to bring more value to candidates in their career path, as well as highlight certain technologies, just trying to bring the ecosystem, the industry, more insight and information, and create more of that following too on why people would be interested in us. So, at the point that I started that, I think I had like 350 connections on LinkedIn. I didn't even ask people to invite on LinkedIn in the first 4 years because I didn't really have any social media presence, no technology. It was just working hard. So now I have just under 15,000 LinkedIn connections. We have over 25,000 people following our social media. We've started SSI Executive Conversations. Our podcast is growing. It's been really exciting. It's in the top 10% of podcast growth wise. Already, we've already hit, I think, 450 downloads, and we started it in February. So now I'm going to tell you what really differentiates us, because what we did before was maybe do things better, the same things that other people do well in terms of filling roles. But what we've really evolved to is a firm that's an industry insights, talent management strategies, and then marketing initiatives firm. And so what my goal has always been to do is really change the candidate experience in a positive fashion to the benefit of the companies, because I think that companies just don't do it well in so many different ways. And if you look at the top 5 reasons why companies fail or succeed, I mean, they're indirectly proportional. 3 of the top 5 are always hiring the wrong people, not having a clear mission and vision, and not being properly aligned in terms of their strategies or understanding the marketplace or their positioning in it. And so our focus in our processes is to help companies to improve on those talent management strategies, attraction and efficiency of the process. And then that will lead to higher retention. And a big part of that is identifying, for a candidate, what is your why? What is important to you? Why do you get up in the morning? And if people go to companies and their value prop and mission matches the why, and then on top of that, they have high emotional intelligence, they're problem solvers, they're likable, they like to work with other people. Then when the challenges occur, you're going to have higher employee engagement, less wasted resources, and you'll be able to grow more profitably. Your culture is going to be better. Now, why does that matter? Because 25% of employees across all industries voluntarily leave every single year. So that's a quarter of the talent. And it's not typically the people, a lot of times the voluntary talent's not the ones you want to lose. They're the ones that you can least likely typically to lose. If you think about Pareto principle or the impact people. And so if you do the things I described earlier, you're most likely going to have lower annual voluntary turnover, and you'll have higher overall retention rates of your most important assets in terms of your talent. So we trademarked our Top Talent Accelerant program after the pandemic. Again, we've always been outcomes and analytic driven. So 94% offer acceptance rate. 53% of our candidates over 8 years have been promoted within 24 months. And then lastly, before we brought TTA on, they stayed a third longer than the industry average relevant to retention. And so now with the Top Talent Accelerant, what we do is we kind of create a candidate experience that's really remarkable in terms of how they get the information. A lot of times, if the candidate talks to a recruiter, maybe the recruiter's spoken to the hiring manager, maybe they haven't. Maybe they understand the products positioning in the marketplace. And for us, that's how it benefits patients clinically, how it compares to the competition. And then is that area growing or not? Is that going to benefit their career? Is it exciting, right? And then maybe they don't, and then they share a job description, which 30% of the time they're incorrect and they don't tell you anything. So unless you're one of the really big companies, most candidates, even if they've heard of them, they've got to go do research, talk to their network. Hey, what are you seeing? So we create our TTA candidate experience portion of it. It's all marketed to and branded to our partner. It has insight about the niche, about the product growth. It has articles, videos, and then we actually created a additional information from the hiring manager's perspective, so that candidate gets everything they need if it's a good fit for them, and they really get to evaluate, is this really a good investment of my time to explore? And so it really differentiates for our partners to the talent. It looks completely different than everything else that they have, and then the same part of that. We call it the partner experience, back to the partner. We give them the same experience back, and everything happens in real time. So if we have a system where if they want to schedule and they say they want to schedule, like a minute later, we know. And so we've been able to fill our partners roles 30 to 40% more efficiently since the pandemic. So when you think about wasted resources and you look at the data, there's just so many different aspects. You can go career builder, leadership IQ, of why companies spend so much money on mishires. And, projected 50 to 60% of hires don't last, that they're not successful based on the first 18 months. There's just a lot of information. I'll throw this out, but like Leadership IQ has a Hire for Attitude. It talks about in that book that of the reasons for mishires across a variety of company sizes and industries, that only 11% of what are deemed failed hires are due to technical aptitude. So they didn't actually have the skill you tried to hire them for at the end of the day. The other 89% is low emotional intelligence. They're not coachable. They don't have a good temperament, so they don't play nice with people in the sandbox, and then they're not motivated. So when you think about that, like, how important is it to hire people that fit your culture and the mission, so that you're going to have greater productivity, and it obviously is going to improve your culture too. So that kind of tells you the talent management side. And then I'll quickly just share with you the other two things. Like, we help people customize their interview process. We don't do it for them, but we help guide them and lead them to delineate between identifying cultural fit versus the technical area for whatever that functional skill set is. And it's not easy to do, but it's vitally important, because most companies don't do that well. There's a nuance to it. And then secondly, whatever the skill is, we see many times in the industry where they do not have a process to evaluate that consistently across the interviews and capture it, so then they can compare and contrast. So if you don't do those two things well, at the end of the day, let's say you're trying to hire, a purple squirrel with a green tail. So you bring in a purple squirrel with a green tail, and if that purple squirrel with the green tail is just phenomenal skills, 12 out of 10, but they're not likable, they don't get along well with others, and they're not coachable, they're never wrong, they're always the smartest person in the room, you should not hire them. In contrast, if that purple squirrel is just awesome, everybody invite them to the Christmas party, hang out with them, barbecue, but they don't have the skill sets, you're essentially setting yourself and them up for failure. You should not hire them. So if you don't delineate in this way through your interview process, you're hiring off gut feeling. Will they look, sound like me, or have the same backgrounds, or you just don't really know. And then the last thing that we do is, from a webinar and a podcast standpoint, is we have the ability to get to talent that others don't, because of our awareness of people following us. And as an example, LinkedIn will tell you that less than 18% of every reach out gets a response, because there's so much crap and selling. And our average fluctuates between 48 and 53% on that particular platform. And so we have the ability to get to talent because of our process and the way we go about it that some people can't. And then we also have the ability to bring on, on the podcast or webinar, and promote, unique technology, and then use that to maybe soften the market before a product launch, or if they get new clinical data or regulatory data. So we can promote them and partner with them in a way that's different than maybe the traditional recruiting firm. So I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully that
it was. But I feel like what you guys are doing is you're kind of getting it from all angles here, because at the end of the day, when a company has high turnover, it's very expensive, and you lose a lot of time in whatever project you're developing or whatever aspect of your business you're trying to grow, for the reason why you're acquiring that talent. And I feel like you guys have kind of taken both sides of this approach. One is you're looking for the talent that's a fit for the particular project or venture that company's going on. But on the other side, you're helping fix one of the main problems, because sometimes the talent is great, but the company just doesn't have their head on straight. And that talent doesn't want to stick with a sinking ship. They want to take off and do something that is going to win. Everybody wants to win. The company wants to win. The talent wants to win. And unless you have it in sync, it's not going to work. To top it all off, you're also taking into account the marketing necessary to acquire that talent, so that you're showing up and you have some credibility here for the talent to say, okay, look, this company has a process in place. The companies that are going to set me up, I know they're viable because they've already done the work to put these companies in a position where if I work here, it's going to be a success. Now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's what your company's doing here.
Yes, so it's like, how do we get paid? How do we generate revenue, right? You got to make money to be in business. It's not a charity at the same time. So we get paid by filling permanent roles. We get paid for doing multi-role projects, consulting or contracting roles. However, I always say we're either a recruiting firm disguised as a, industry insights, talent management strategies, or marketing initiatives disguised, or vice versa. But at the end of the day, I think it's how much value do you bring to your part. And again, I use the word partnership a lot because I don't want to be a vendor. And a lot of the industry, from my perspective, was always it's transactional, and I don't care what it is. If you put transactional in, you will get transactional back. And so I'd much rather, and here's the other thing, when I share what you and I just talked about, because over the last 6 to 8 months, if I get on a call with a CEO, an executive, or a chief human resources officer, the first 20 minutes of the conversation has nothing to do with a position, skills, fees. It's all about, what is your process relevant to attracting the right people? I mean, in this day and age of the metaverse and technology, if you can't find people, I mean, there's information everywhere. It's about how do you connect with them.
Issue there if you can't find the people.
How do you attract them after you understand what's valuable to them to create efficiencies in the process? Because cost of mishires, I mean, there's information all the way. Jack Welch used to say that the cost of mishires were more than most companies' annual corporate taxes, right? And so depending on the role and the level, it could be anywhere from 4 to 7 times the annual cost of that person's salary, commission, et cetera. And then annual voluntary turnover is anywhere from half to 4 times that comp. So when you look at the wasted, that's just on, trying to backfill. And when you look at your TA resources, whether it's internal or external, marketing, you train this person and now they're gone, or they didn't work out. There's just so many aspects of what I see that companies kind of miss out on, because they kind of miss the forest through the trees. And that's where my goal has been, and how we're trying to increase these processes from a high level to be able to show them, hey, look, if you look at this a little bit different way and you put a little bit more value into it up front, and then you hire people that, what they want to do matches what you're trying to do, you're going to have greater efficiencies. You're going to have less wasted resources. And the great thing for us is, in the past, I've worked on a lot of things that I didn't get paid for. Okay. And when you first start, it's like, okay, I started the company in quality because as a clinician, I felt like people in that area that care about outcomes. And I found that to absolutely be correct. But it's like, hey, can I work on your director position? Well, how many of those you've done? I'm like, none. I've been in business for 2 weeks. So no, I wouldn't give it to me either. Right. So the first, 4 years, everything we did was contingent. If we didn't fill it, we didn't get paid. Well, I've worked on a lot of, I think the year that we built 600, I did the math, and I worked on $450,000 worth of roles that probably were never going to happen. That's a lot of wasted resources and time and energy. And so now when we go into those conversations, if that doesn't resonate with them, we're not a good fit. Because if you're looking for transactional, I had a call with a company this last week, and most of the time we share this and actually show them TTA, and they're like, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like that. Let's send us your agreement. But we had a company, they loved it all, and then they're like, well, we'll only do contingent. I'm like, well, I'm not doing this for you for free. Your position's been open a year doing it your way. And so if this doesn't resonate with you and you don't get it, then we're probably not gonna be good partners. So it's great for us too, because it prevents us from making bad decisions.
Yeah, but you also you're putting in the work that you needed to ahead of time, and almost every entrepreneur has to go through that, right? When you're first getting started, you're in a space you're not familiar with. You have the capability, you just haven't proven it yet. You got to have those case studies in place, but you put in the work. And now you're at the point where, look, I have all these different positions I've been able to fill. I have all this experience. I'm ready to go. It's no longer on consignment. So who are you targeting today? Who's that person that you're going after that is ready to see this vision and move forward?
So I think it's somebody that really values culture. They want to work with people that they like, that have a shared vision, while also understanding that, the diversity of where those ideas come from, as long as the values are similar, that they love diversity. They love the idea of different experiences as long as the values are aligned. And somebody that understands the challenges of the marketplace, of the cost of mishires, of not having the alignment there. And they want to, if they value data. So again, we talked about why companies fail. 70% of companies across all industries don't make it 10 years. Most people know that, 30 to 40% don't make it the first year, and then it's like 50% of those left don't make it 5 years. But 70% across all industries don't make it 10 years. That's remarkable when you really think about it. And so companies that somebody that understands values data, analytics, and efficiency, their outcomes. And I talk about the metaverse, AI, interoperability. I mean, it's crazy what is out there. But one of the top 6 reasons, especially over the last 10 years, that companies fail is when they don't value data. And so how can you evaluate the benefit you're bringing to companies if you don't look at outcomes? And then if you don't value analytics, you can't create best practices. You can't improve off your previous failures. So somebody that resonates with, because it applies to every functional area. It applies clinical. If you look at clinical trial failures, almost 20% of stage 3 clinical trials fail. And if you look at it, it's usually due to clinical efficacy, so over 70%. And then if you go down another layer, it all has to do with poor leadership, cutting corners, or not having the right talent, or data issues. You can go through the same thing with regulatory affairs submissions. 70% of regulatory affairs submissions don't get approved the first time. All comes back to human error. And then I'll give you one more example in terms of quality. If you look at just medical device, the average expense to a company for an FDA recall is about $5 million. And that doesn't account all of the pain. Industry-wide or medtech-wide, for everything, it's over $6 billion. Like, if you then go look at the reasons why: poor design quality, fraud, they cut corners. Maybe they had pressure to get it on the market too fast because they weren't aligned relevant to the C-suite's forecasting. So they cut corners. They didn't value data. So they had cybersecurity issues. They had direction from the FDA and they didn't properly implement it. It all comes back to poor leadership and not having the right person in the right seat. So somebody that appreciates doing things right the first time, and maybe that means putting in a little bit more effort for the relationship, but they want to partner, they value data and understand how analytics can help them drive for greater efficiencies, and they get what I'm talking about, why companies fail and succeed. Because if somebody understands that, then we can be great, we can be great partners for them. And the other thing I share with it, we have a company we just helped bring in their first talent for commercial launch in the United States. And that was just a phenomenal, they're a neat company, neat culture. We actually just had 5 offers accepted Monday through the Top Talent Accelerant program. But one of the things, we do several things that benefit them. And the chief human resources officer is like, well, why do you do this? They're like, how much is this going to matter? I said, 96% it won't. It's tying in the personality profile relevant to the hiring managers after they're already in the interview process. She's like, well, why do you do it? And I said, well, a couple different reasons. First of all, because if somebody calls you up and says, hey, can I do this, this, or this? You're going to be like, well, can you do this? Can you do that? And no, they probably can't. And she laughed. She said, yeah. And I said, and then the other thing is relevant to how you grow and the cultural fit. If you look at how we helped them customize their interview process to really be able to look at the culture versus the skill. And I said, we probably, if it was just a perfect situation, we still wouldn't want more than probably 15 to 20% of their key positions that we would do a great job on. Now, we have other companies that we have relationships with and we can partner that we could bring in, and let's say another 15% of roles that maybe we don't really want to do, or we don't have the resources at this point, and we wouldn't do a great job, but we have a relationship we could bring in and we could split the fees and they just use us as the conduit. But for us, it's probably less than 20%. But the cool thing about this is if you do it right, it would benefit every single functional category of your company. And how's that going to benefit your culture? How's that going to benefit? So if you do that, and then we have a webinar later on tonight on career ladders, same thing, but delineation of the interview process between that piece is more about bringing the right people in up front. But then you have to have a process for general employee appreciation and leadership and mentorship, and how do you get to grow? And if you do those things together, those are the companies that really get it.
Darwin, you have it completely dialed in. Ladies and gentlemen, top talent acquisition process is the trademark here. It's a program that right? And if you guys want to get started, because at the end of the day, Darwin's right. It's the data that's going to make the biggest difference. It's your company culture that's going to make the biggest difference. And that acquiring top talent, when you have those things in place, that's what's going to catapult your business to that next level. Things aren't going to fall through the cracks. You're going to have the 10 players, the A players in the right seats doing what needs to get done. And your company's just going to thrive from there. So make sure you guys check out his website. It's shurigsolutions.com, shurigsolutions.com. Darwin, thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a lot of information, but it's the information that people need to understand about their business in order to be successful. So thank you very much for coming on. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, shurigsolutions.com. And then Darwin, thank you very much for being on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Appreciate you, man.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started